You start the.
Hey, thanks, Michael. I really appreciate that you're willing to spend a little time here in the founder circle and
Mm.
talk a little bit about what makes you tick as a founder. So, give me some perspective as to, well, let's do introductions first. Why don't you introduce yourself and what QB Pro is all about?
Well, certainly. My name is Michael Brent Cockrum, and there's a story behind the Brent part. Midstream now, not even midstream, so downstream of my career, I'm finding a need to change my name only because of this. I'll tell you a quick story. 2 years ago, I brought in a partner who is not on the call with us. And I've known her family for many years, probably 17 years. And we went to church together. We did things as families together. And everyone in my personal life knows me as Brent. That's always been a way it is. But when I started in the credit union industry, 26 years ago now. It was on a temporary contract for 6 months, and since my legal name is Michael, that's all my paperwork is filled out that way. So I never found the need in the beginning to tell them to call me Brent. I just said we'll just go with Michael for the next 6 months. Well, 26 years later, I am deep in this industry, and it's kind of hard to change your name in the middle of that. But when we're in meetings or on calls with my business partner, and she calls me Brent, it causes a little bit of confusion with people. So it's a little short explanation of that. But so I am the president and CEO of actually Creative Market Resource Group, which is not a name again that you know us by, but our product is QB Pro. Our credit union facing product is QB Pro, and it's so funny that when it dawns on people what that actually means or what it actually stands for, they're like, "Oh, I get it now. It's CU Credit Union, BI Business Intelligence." And so we started this company 7.5 years ago now. And we have been serving dozens of credit unions across the country over those 7.5 years, doing exactly what our idea was to do when we started out. And
That's
that is,
fantastic.
and I should say, that is providing fractional data science services specifically to credit unions. And that in the context of that statement, there's a a million different ways that can happen, and we're not quite to a million, but we've hit a number of them.
I think that's fantastic. And just for the record, and this is being recorded for posterity, I have to tell you that you and what you've done at QB Pro, it is something that I always look up to in my head.
Hmm.
I think you've done some amazing things, and so I really appreciate it. As I mentioned in the little prep discussion we had before we turned on the record button, I am fascinated by this whole notion of what makes founders tick. Um, uh, Founders just like you, Brent. Um, I think it's really an important thing to dissect. 9 out of 10 startups fail, and we always blame things like uh, product market fit was off, the team was wrong, um, go to market strategy was bad, we burned through all the cash. All of those things are important considerations, and yes, indeed, they can cause a startup to fail. But I'm wondering if it's actually a problem that's upstream of those things, and that's the reason for the call. I wanted to ask you why why did you start a company? What was in your brain to actually say, I want to do this and we're going to make a difference? And so I'd like to understand what prompted you to start framing QBPro.
Great question. And now I would argue from the beginning, being a data person, that I would say that 100% of startups eventually fail. And what I mean is
Point.
right? There's a lot of businesses that are around centuries ago that probably don't exist today. Um, and I think it really actually goes to this core question of what is your purpose? What is your problem that you're trying to solve? And it really goes back to something I did years ago with a friend of mine. His name is Paul Kirkbride. He was working with me at CU Direct, and we did this consulting thing where, we went through the process of finding your why. Why personally, why do you exist, right? And in that, I landed on this sort of my core value of leaving someone leaving somewhere better than I found it, right? And not just going in and picking all the fruit off the tree, right? Is more of this sustainableness of business of how do you create value? In fact, in our world today, we see a lot of tech startups, and nothing against that. We've seen a lot of beautiful things come out of technology startups. Um, but we've also seen a lot of things happen where there's really no value. Like people put money into something, but it doesn't really solve a problem, right? And so there's no value, and that's I think a lot of those the reason why a lot of those don't last, and I really think because of sort of the tech startup what's happened in the last 20 years, I think that 9 out of 10 is probably more like 9.65 out of 10, just from the beginnings of the idea of something. um, so, my motivation was years of accidental discoveries. And at the end of the day, we've all worked at corporations, we've all worked in jobs that we found value in. But at some point in time, we just knew that if we did it differently, that there's a possibility that it might be a bigger thing. And running a bit against the grain here in a technology-driven world, um, I came upon an epiphany, 8 or 9 years ago that most of the potential clients in the credit union space specifically weren't enamored by the technology. They were more enamored by a solution, right? So an answer. And I gained that knowledge from selling and servicing software from some very credible organizations. But one of the things we found was just underutilization of that technology, right? And
Mhm.
so, as I remember a presentation, and God save me, I can't remember who it was that gave this presentation, but they were talking about the emotions of buying something and how that your actual emotions are more higher, your excitement is more higher before you make the purchase than immediately afterwards. So whether that's an automobile, a house, a vacation, the anticipation of going on vacation versus the reality of actually being on vacation sometimes even is different, right? And this idea that when was the last time you bought any product or any solution that you just walked away and thought, man, it's better than I imagined it would be, right? But a lot of times when we purchase technology or any other solution, our reaction is more like, man, that's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be to learn and to use and to use. Oh, by the way, I didn't even know it did that, right? And um, so what we decided to do, long answer to a very simple question, is my epiphany was credit unions needed somebody to stand in the middle for them, somebody with a broader skill set. And the thinking is, and I think this goes back to, and I think this is somewhat lost, when I talk to people who want to talk about investing in the company and things of that nature, they want to know what kind of technology we have. And I was like, we're really going back to the notion of the true credit union service organization. And we're not actually a credit union service organization. We just focus on credit unions. But the idea of a credit union service organization was to provide pinpoint expertise at a time when the credit union needed it the most, not that every credit union needs that resource forever or on a full-time basis. And so when we enter in specifically into business intelligence and to data, which is the biggest separator between the winners and losers today, to be quite honest with you, is this notion that I've got to hire somebody who has all of these skills, right? And it's impossible. You might find a good, you know, a DBA, a database administrator, but they may not really be good at statistics, or they may not actually know what's important to your business. And so, this idea of gathering these resources together and allowing credit unions to tap into those skills on a temporary or part-time basis helps a small, medium-sized credit union compete with the larger credit unions. So that's really the idea of the business is to sort of lower the entry of the barrier to entry for a credit union, and it's not super sophisticated. It really isn't. And But it's working because it's really doing the thing that credit unions want.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that perspective. I have a tough question for you here, or at least I think it's tough.
Mhm.
Um, uh, what uh, You and I are both faithful men.
Yep.
Um, what keeps you balanced? Is it your faith? Is it your partner? Is it your lovely bride? Is it family? Is it the industry? What is it that keeps you balanced and keeps you heading in the right direction?
Well, I would lie to you if I said to you that first the premise of your question is that I am balanced. Okay. Um, and I've done a lot of research on this because, it's important. What you're saying is what's your network of support, right? And it's important to talk to these people. And oftentimes you get the advice of, hey, you need to slow down. You need to quit taking on so much. You need to quit, doing this or that. But when you're the founder, okay, so this is sort of the arc for a founder. And it's not worth complaining about because if your founder is in your it's in your soul, right? And that's what creates the founder syndrome at some point in time, right? Is this when the business has to transition to something that wasn't part of your original idea, and that founder has a hard time doing that, right? So the successful companies are the ones that are able to switch, over and bring in talent and let talent take control. So, um, first and foremost, it is my faith in God, and it does require constant reminders, because every founder, panics. Every founder, is up against the wall on one thing, a deadline or another. Thank goodness we have never had financial issues up to this date. Gotten close, but didn't. We haven't taken on any debt and we haven't taken on any investments. And, even when people come with an interest in investing in our business model, I make it clear to them we're looking for strategic partners, people to be supportive, not people that we need money from. So that's a good thing. So the trajectory was starting out with just being led spiritually to do this, and having that faith to step out and say, okay, I'm going to take all my marbles, everything that I have accumulated in life, and I'm going to put it on the roulette wheel and see what happens. Now, you don't do that carelessly, right? You do it through a lot of prayer and consideration and discussions, especially with your spouse. But I would say that my network of friends, people like you, at times in my life. My business partner and my wife are both faithful people as well. people that I can talk to, people that don't get panicked, when I share something panicky to them. So and really more so than not, they're the ones that push me forward. Is like because I am the one that's constantly asking questions, and they're just like, hey, just do it. Just move forward. It's gonna be fine. So yeah. In fact, like right now, we're balancing. My business partner and I were balancing a number of clients, but then we decided that we also needed to buy this commercial property. And so we're going through that process. And now, like, we're 80% in on that process, but I'm just like, I want to pull the cord. I'm like, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. But, the others do. But I think for a founder, it's your baby, and there's no separation from it. I mean, you're always talking about it, and people may not understand that, but you know, it is what it is. And until I can walk away from it, I'm always going to be concerned about it. But I don't know if that answers your question, but
It does. It's perfect. I got to tell you that I've done a lot of soul searching in a very long career. I hesitate to tell people how many decades I've been doing this,
hmm
but it's a long time. I think I'm close to out of fingers on one hand, and so I've got so many experiences that track exactly with what you say. I have no doubt that your partner and your lovely bride would not hesitate for a second to tell you if the baby was ugly. You mentioned your baby. I think
right.
they would let you know. And
Mhm.
that to me is the perfect answer. And it kind of confirms my hypothesis. So listen, you've given me 25 minutes of time already. I know you got an appointment coming up, but I want to really thank you for the insights here, Michael. Brent,
Well, my yeah,
Cochran.
my appointment isn't for another hour, but I did want to add on to what you just said
Yeah,
there
yeah, please.
about the baby, being ugly. Um, I, I've had some ugly babies. So, this one is a good looking baby. But, and I think that's the other thing about entrepreneurs and founders is that they're just habitually coming up with ideas, right? And some of them are good or some of them are bad. I think the key um, moving on from a bad idea, right? And even within the QB Pro area, we've had some, I wouldn't call them bad ideas, they just didn't take off, right? And so okay, um, just get rid of that, put that aside for now, and let's let that bake for a while. Um, so I letting go of stuff that's not working, I think that's important and not just keep doubling down, doubling down. I've known some people who are my friends that have doubled down on bad ideas. And I'm just
Hmm.
saying, hey man, what's the market for this? Nobody's calling, right? And so and I think that's the other thing is listening because I think obviously them, you've met these people, you've met me. There's a certain level of confidence in all of us, right?
Yep.
Sometimes that can go too far, right? And be detrimental to you. And I think having a little bit of humility of the being able to say, well, that was a bad idea, or that was a bad suggestion, or that was a bad deal that I just struck. So I think having, you know, when you start something, I think what was good for me was setting a level at which I wasn't going to go past that level. I was like, okay, we're going to go down this road, but this is the line I'm going to draw in the sand. And when it gets there, then I'll turn back. And just an interesting story on that because I think every founder has had this happen to them. I had it. I like when I started, I had the money set aside to start the company. I knew that obviously I was going uh, to lose money, burn some cash in the beginning. Didn't know how long that would be. Um, and I saw the money coming down, and it got really close to that mark that I had set. And in fact, at that point in time, there was an offer on the table to buy my company, and that was about 4 years ago now, maybe. Yeah, 4 years.
Yeah.
I'm losing track. Wait a minute. It was 3 years ago. 3 years ago. And it was tempting, not, but at the end of the day, I was like, I'm not done. I'm not done doing this yet. And so, you're talking about faith. And so I thought and prayed a lot about it and prepared to send the buyer, the letter to say, yeah, I'm out. And my wife and I were standing here. I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to back out of the deal. And I click the send button on the email, and you know how your email cycles, it sends out and then something comes back in. What has ended up being QB Pro's largest contract came in within 5 minutes of me sending that email out, turning down that offer. And in the 3 years, the company has tripled in size. And I give a lot of credit to my business partner coming on. I mean, she's brilliant, but not that she didn't turn the company around. It was adding her to the company that all of a sudden it wasn't just me that people were looking at. And she added another element to our business. And giving up equity in the business, those types of things weren't something that I had planned to do in the beginning. But they turned out to be one of the best decisions I made. And yeah, so think about that, founders out there. There'll be that minute where you have to do that gut decision.
I love that. That's a fantastic story. Thank you for sharing. One of the conclusions that I draw, I actually just wrote about this today, that founders need a yin and a yang. You need to have somebody in your life needs to be able to push at you and prod you and ask questions, and you of them as well. I think that from what you're describing, my impression, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but my impression is that your network around you makes you a better person, a better founder.
Yeah, likely. Yeah, and I obviously give a lot of credit to my wife, who, has put up with me for 25 years and all of my babies, good and bad. But this is something I recognize because Shalyn and I, she's my business partner, we do, our engagements, we do them together. And one of the things I noticed right off the bat is that we do strategic planning. I know it's funny, we do a lot of different things, but we do strategic planning. We do, obviously data governance and strategy throughout the credit union. And there is sort of this good cop, bad cop element that seems to work, right? And honestly, what's funny is that she and I very rarely disagree on what needs to be done, but because we do it so differently, it enables us to, I think, connect with people better.
That's terrific. I'm going to say I, I think I think that's a God thing. Just going to say that out loud. I think that's amazing.
Yep.
And I think I like I said, I just wrote about this in my Substack this morning. I I'll tell a real quick story myself. Way back in the '90s, in the early '90s, actually, early to mid '90s, I worked for a consulting company in Denver, and there were these two guys that started this tech consulting group, and one was this calm character, very smooth, and the other one was kind of a wild man. They were great friends.
Hmm.
The wild man was the sales guy. The calm guy was sort of the CEO-ish guy, and I don't think they could have been as successful as they were without each other. So I really appreciate that, Mike.
So since you said it was a God thing, I'll tell you this story. Okay. So Shal and her husband moved from California, I want to say about 17 years ago. And they actually started attending the church that my wife and I had been attending, where I was teaching Bible study. They are much younger than us. They weren't supposed to be in our Bible study class, but they accidentally came to our Bible study class. So, Sean and I have had this discussion before. So they accidentally came to our Bible study class and were there for several years, obviously. But when you look back on the way the Lord knits things together, right? And during all that time, she and I had never talked about business. Never. Like even in our personal time as families, we never talked about what we did. She was highly successful in the payments industry. I was successful in the credit union business, right? But we never talked about it. And it wasn't until just over 2 years ago that we sat down because she had taken some time off, and we sat down because she wanted to get back in to the game. She wasn't looking at credit union. She wasn't doing any of that. But I just said, yeah, let's talk about it, see if there's something I can help you with. And after about 15 minutes of talking to her and listening to her background and just listening to her mind, I realized I'm not going to help you. You're going to help me, right? And so that's how they came
It's
together.
awesome.
And I just said, look, I'll do anything. I can't, at the beginning, I was like, I can't pay. And you're not going to find a lot of people like this, but, I can't hire you full time. But let's do this. And so over a 6 month period, um, and I told her like going into 2023, I said, look, let's set up a strategic plan for 2023 because that's what her expertise is. I said, let's set our highest level goal of what we're going to do. And if we hit that goal, I will make you an equity partner in this business. So that was the 2024. That was for 2024. I apologize. 2024. That was for the entire year of 2024. By the end of March, we had hit that goal.
Oh my gosh. That's that's awesome. That is terrific. Well,
Yep.
listen,
Sorry.
you've
I'm
given
full of
me
stories. We can go all day long.
you've given me so much information, and this is going to be great affirmation. I'm going to post this. I'm not going to edit it. So it's going to
Uh,
be, it's just going to be in its glory. I'm just going to put it out there. I think it's going to be valuable information. Incidentally, this founder circle will be a series of founder interviews, just like this one, with those founders that I know, because I think this is such important perspective and good information for founders everywhere. So I want to thank you for making time. With that, I'm going to turn off the recording and you
yep.
can
Good
holler
luck to
at
you.
me. Yeah, yeah.